Heat up your frozen dinners, grab your TV tray, and settle in for another episode of the Plus Platoon, your podcast for all things Disney Plus, brought to you by Disney Plus fans. Watch along with us every week as we cover all the new, the old, the good, and the bad on Disney Plus. So put down that remote, don't touch that dial, and welcome your fabulous Plus Platoon host.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Plus Platoon. We're a Disney Plus fan podcast that gives honest, spoiler-filled reviews of movies and shows on Disney Plus. We look at new releases, coming attractions, and we'll even go back into the vault to revisit some of the classic Disney that's on the platform. Make sure you're subscribed and you will never miss a moment. I'm going to bring in Kate. Kate, good to see you again.
Good to see you too. It's good to be back.
Yeah.
Although I was here last week, right? Was I here last week? This is what happens when you travel for your career, everybody.
It was 2 weeks ago. We missed you. We missed you
right.
for Bug's Life, but you were here for the rides last week.
That's right.
Which, you've never seen Bug's Life?
I've seen bits and pieces, but I don't think I've seen it all the way through.
Okay, we've just lost Kate. Sorry about that. No, Kate, we almost got to take away your platoon card on that.
But I will say that the ride, and I don't know if you all said this in the episode, but the ride, the show at Animal Kingdom is actually kind of scary.
For little kids,
For little kids, it would have terrified me as a child.
Yeah, so next we have Pete. Pete, glad to have you with us.
Hey, glad to be talking about Indiana Jones again, because we talked about him last week.
Yes, we did. And we got a full platoon this week. Steve's with us. Steve.
Hey, everyone.
Guys, if you have not already, please like, subscribe, share. That way you'll never miss any episode, including next week's, the 2023 Toonies, which voting is still open. So please go vote and let us know what you liked, what you didn't like.
I still got to vote.
Yeah, you do still got to vote. So this week, in case you couldn't guess by Pete, we are talking about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, which came out this week. Surprise, surprise, the bad guys in this are, wait for it, Nazis.
They only did that 3 times.
Yeah, the other ones were Russians and then like crazy Aztecs.
Yeah.
So, anyway, the whole idea is there's an Archimedes time dial that has been broken in half, and they're trying to find both halves of, and he's chasing the guy from Casino Royale, and which is where he came from. Yes, Kate.
Did anyone else struggle with hearing Archimedes over and over, and all you could think about was the owl from Sword in the Stone?
That's all I wanted to think about.
Okay. I never thought of that once.
I did every time. And I finally looked at Casey and I was like, this is all I can think about. And then he goes, Archimedes, help!
I was thinking of bathtubs.
Or or Mythbusters.
Well, because he conceived the idea of using displacement to
measure
determine the volume of something.
All right, I'm going to say something right now. I'm going to ask that you all please don't judge me.
Out loud.
Archimedes was a real person?
Yes.
Ancient
was Archimedes like Aristotle? Like that same...
Well, Aristotle was Greek and I think was older, like before Archimedes, but Archimedes was Roman.
Yeah.
And
cool.
like, yeah, so
no. Archimedes was Greek.
Was
See,
he Greek?
when
Okay.
I think Archimedes,
Romans.
I don't know why when I think hear Archimedes, I think like Hermes and Zeus and like I think the Greek gods. That's why I didn't realize
think Archimedes along the lines of Socrates and Aristotle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Archimedes would be in that scene in Spaceship Earth, where they invented the new concept called mathematics.
Oh, is that where the philosophers are sitting?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't feel as dumb now.
But as I said, his big the Archimedes principle, I believe, is the displacement.
Yes.
So
what a name. Well, I think of the owl. So anyway, continue. Sorry to interrupt.
I'm used to it. So anyway,
It's true.
but so he created this time machine that in theory would let people go back to any place or time they wanted to, but in reality was only ever going to take people back to the Battle of Syracuse. And
well, it would take them back to certain dates.
no,
because there were dates written down, and one of the dates, one date was like the present date that the movie took place, and then one of the dates was August 1939, which would have been before Hitler invaded Poland.
Right.
So that in theory, he had done the calculations for it to take him back to that point. But you are correct in that Archimedes set it up so it would only take them back to.
Yeah. He tried to take him back to 1939. The dial itself was only ever set up to take him back to 216 BC, 213, 216.
Yeah, something like that.
Somewhere that way. So anyway, last of Harrison Ford is Indiana Jones. I'm going to start and to give, the keeper of the faith of the Indiana Jones series, Pete, I'm going to start with you. What about this movie is destined for greatness?
So, okay. So there's a few things. I would say the first 22 minutes of this movie, I loved. I thought it was great. I thought the action was great. I was not bothered by the de-aging too much. I thought that de-aging itself, the visual was done well. I wish they'd like modulated his voice so he didn't sound like an 80-year-old man.
Yep.
but I'm surprised. I would have thought that would have been easier to do than recreate his face. But anyways, but other than that, I really like that opening sequence. It had the humor. It really captured to me the spirit of the original Indiana Jones. I kind of liked the story in this movie in that they didn't go for like another mystical thing.
I would agree with that.
So it was, I thought that, having this concept of time and using, wanting to go back, and also with having Harrison Ford being so old and having his character feeling like he's outlived his usefulness, like that stuff worked together. And there were a couple other sequences I liked in the movie. And it was a lot better than the Crystal Skull.
Well, so that's the curve we're grading it on.
What about you, Steve?
What did I really like about it? It was the story. I grew up, Pete and I we grew up with these movies. They were big hits. Like you said, the opening sequence, it was the Indy that I remember seeing. Sort of that quick, fast action humor going on. The story, I liked the story. I mean, I like sort of that time travel stuff. And I think it was an interesting take on that. That's mostly what I have to say about it. So
wow.
For me, I liked the whole concept of, I like how they used Archimedes and used some of the things he came up with, or at least in theory came up with, like the water displacement to save them. Like there were images of what in theory were the Archimedes death rays of the mirrors reflecting light to, in theory, set ships on fire, which don't work. But I liked that they brought in, as you said, Pete, nothing mystical. It was a real person. And yes, did he invent this timey-wimey wibbly-wobbly thing? Yes, but I like the fact that they used a real person on this and at least a little real archaeology. Like real places and some real thoughts behind it that I originally was a Greek and classical antiquities major in college. So I really enjoyed that part of this.
Nerd.
How long have you known me?
I just love that.
New information.
Truly, I just love that about you. I love, like, if you say that and I'm like, yes, that fits. I see it. I love it.
I was going to say, among the four of us, one of these things is not like the other.
It's true.
As far as nerds and that kind of thing, yeah. I mean, you got two teachers and an engineer on here, so yeah.
Kate's a theater nerd, not a
I am
science nerd or whatever.
I want to be a science nerd. I just don't. Science doesn't come as easily to me, and
That's
science
fair.
and math don't come easy to me.
So anyway, I love the fact that they used some of the ancient Greek and Roman antiquity stuff. Hey,
so I didn't hate this movie. I did not grow up with Indiana Jones. Although, what years can some of you tell me what years those movies came out?
81, 84, and 89.
Which one came out in 89?
Last
Holy
Crusade.
Grail.
Okay,
Last
so
Crusade, sorry, yeah.
I did actually grow up a little bit because I was born in 88. So they were out on video by the time that I was of conscious age. Anyway, so, and I do remember we did watch them a little bit in high school, my friends and I, because we actually were nerdy. Anyway, but so I liked that it felt like Indiana Jones. To me, it had the Indiana Jones feel to it. It had the similar action sequences. It had where he was riding a horse at one point, and just I felt, I was like, yeah, this is definitely an Indiana Jones movie, as opposed to like, ooh, this is just so different. I loved having Marion come back at the end. I enjoyed that. I liked some of the nods to the original movie. However, I think I missed a lot of those because I don't know the older movies as well as you all do. But, and that was a question I was going to ask to you all who know the older movies so much better than I do. Was it exciting when Baz showed up and when the other guy that I can't remember his name showed up?
Sala?
Yeah. Like, was that like a, oh my gosh moment?
Sala was Sala
No.
was in the first and the third one, and he's also in the ride in Disneyland.
Yes, he is.
And so yeah, it's kind of cool. I actually liked that they didn't go overboard with the like nods to the old movies.
I would agree.
A lot of movies now are doing that like crazy, where like it's entirely nods.
Yeah.
And so I appreciated that they made it more feel like, I mean, not that there weren't mentions like when they were climbing up the cliff and he's like, I drank the blood of Cali and but like most of the nods at least fit within the story as opposed to being forced in.
Okay.
So, and things like his hat, to me, that's not a nod. He's Indiana Jones. He's got to have his hat. He's got to have his whip. That's all fine. I didn't, and there weren't really, Baz wasn't in from the original movies. It was really only Marion and Sala were the only two characters that were mentioned, that were brought back. They mentioned that his dad and I think they mentioned some about. Did they mention something about his dad being dead? I don't remember, but
something about his dad. Well, I don't remember his dad, but they mentioned about how Mutt had been killed in Vietnam.
Right. Yeah. But they used not bringing back Shia LaBeouf as a story point, so that was good, I guess.
So overall, it was enjoyable. It wouldn't be a movie that I would like just pick out to watch, but I'm glad we watched it. So I'm trying to think if there was anything else. I really enjoy the acting, and I cannot remember her. Wombat was her nickname. I really enjoy
Phoebe
her.
Waller-Bridge is the actress.
Yeah, I just think that she's a talented actress.
And I did like the fact that they didn't try and force something romantic.
Yes.
Yeah.
because that is so
Mhm.
many of those old adventure movies would have tried to force the main two male and female characters something romantic in between them. And I'm
Right.
so glad there wasn't.
Yeah,
So-
for sure.
Overall, I liked it.
Okay. Now, if that's what was destined for greatness, Steve, what about this movie should have been dialed back?
It wasn't enough indie for me. I'm more like Pete. The opening was really indie, and then I think it sort of fell off. This is the second time I saw it. I saw it when it first premiered, and I got done and I went, it was missing and not enough of that indie heart for me, what I remember. I did not care for Helena, Wombat, and the other little sidekick. I mean, shouldn't say it was a love-hate. There's really parts I really liked, and there's other parts that it just wasn't doing it for me. I feel like the sidekick, I can't remember what the sidekick's name was, the boy. I feel like they could have just tossed him out. He was there trying to get the short round sort of feel. Yeah, I think it was just it was not enough Indiana Jones for me. What I remember from like the Last Crusade, I'm going to say even Temple of Doom and the original.
Okay.
Like the opening sequence, awesome. After that, and I know my other half told me, goes, he's 80 years old. What do you expect?
He's
He rode a
80
horse.
years old.
You know he's 81.
81.
He's
Yeah.
81 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was 79 when they shot it,
Okay,
but
yes.
yeah.
And not enough Marion. I think Marion should have been in the story from the very beginning, and the play off of them, I think, would have been much better.
Okay.
Yeah.
For me, this felt like, well, what if Marvel did an Indiana Jones movie? To me, that first 21 or whatever minutes it was too long. It was because Indy doesn't have 20-minute action sequences. Indy has 5-minute action sequences, and he'll have 3 of them in a 20-minute time period, but he gives you that 2 to 3 minute break in between to take a breath.
Good point.
And then just the whole way through, it's one of those, the first half of this movie was action sequences. I mean, there wasn't enough story until about the last 20 minutes. Until they got into the cave, I was bored out of my skull. Once they got into the cave and actually started doing some of the different archaeology type stuff, interesting to me. But again, before that, I think part of it was the villain I have seen in so many other things that it distracted me for him as the main villain. I kept picturing him in different, especially because he looks like he has looked in several different movies. It was distracting that he was the main villain.
Yeah, he's even been a Marvel villain.
Yeah, I
What
mean,
Marvel villain was he?
The first Doctor Strange, he was the bad guy.
Yeah.
Oh.
For me, there was a little thing that bugged me, especially, and it was on the train.
At the beginning?
Yes, the Raiders March was in too high of a key. And it was just one of those little things where you listen, but there was no how you usually got a bum, but that deep, that the driving bass, it sounded like they just said, well, we can't afford the lows today, so it's all going to be trumpets and French horns. So it was too high. The CGI on the chase scene got old. I mean, there's no way he was actually riding that horse for that whole time. There's no way. It wasn't even a stuntman that they filmed him in. The stunt scene with the chase at the parade, that bothered me more than the train chase at the end, at the beginning. I did not mind the de-aging. I agree, Pete. They needed to change his voice because he sounded like an old man.
Yeah.
And what made me really realize what this movie wasn't was when they did the Where Does It Hurt with Marion at the end. When they did that at the end, that throwback to Raiders and the interplay and some of that comedy was not there the rest of the movie. It to me, it missed the Indy. There was no romantic chemistry, but there was no chemistry between.
Yeah, not enough fun.
Right. Yeah. Not enough fun. There wasn't fun. It wasn't a fun movie. It was an action movie.
Right, but like that opening scene to me had some of that fun, which is like, because I know you complain about like too much action, but Indiana Jones is kind of all action. But like Harrison Ford brings that, and they always manage to bring that little bit of like he's out of his depth and like he gets into these situations and somehow he gets out of them.
And you never felt that in that first sequence.
Well, to me, I felt that in that first sequence, and then after that, I never felt it.
Where in the first sequence was he out of his depth? He was in control that whole time.
He was being hung by his neck, and then a bomb drops, and he's like, "Uh-oh!"
I believe that because you saw him cutting his hands loose earlier.
Right,
I would have rather have had him cutting his hand like the bomb go off, and he then grabbed something sharp happened to fly into his hands. And that's how he cut his hands loose. I would have rather had that. I mean, but you're right. Especially after that, he was never out of his depth. Even when he was being, held prisoner and had been shot. I'm sorry. Where they shot him was not his shoulder. This is not my shoulder. And this is where they shot him. I mean, it's just one of those where there were little you could tell. This was the first movie not directed by Steven Spielberg. This was the first Indiana Jones one that was not directed by Steven Spielberg. I think you could tell that the directing wasn't quite as great. So anyway,
for sure.
I have talked a ton. Kate, was there anything else you didn't like about the movie?
Well, you took most of mine. But it was the movie as a whole, in my opinion, was just a little bit too long. Because it came in at about 2 hours or 2.5 hours. Just a tiny bit too long. I think, Derek, you made a really good point when you said that it was the Indiana Jones or the Marvel of an Indiana Jones movie. Because you're right. The things that I did like about the older Indiana Jones movies is that there was fight a little bit, and then it gave you a second to breathe. And then fight. The CGI bothered me a lot. It wasn't as bad as like She-Hulk, but it was just so. Casey and I have this game that we play when we watch TVs or movies, where we'll say green screen if we think it's a green screen, or like not a real baby if it's like someone's holding a baby and it's very clearly a baby doll. And as we were watching this, Casey just kept going green screen.
You would have been saying that all the time in this.
Yeah,
movie.
green screen. And like I noticed it when they were in the plane, but it was a helicopter, but I thought it was a plane or whatever. And the guy like leans out of the door of the plane and is like,
and his hair is not moving.
His hair's not moving. And like for someone who has jumped out of a plane and been skydiving, like can confirm that is not what happened. So that made me like actually audibly laugh out loud. So the CGI bugged me. Man, I can't believe he's 81. That is just wild to me.
Oh, you believe it? That opening shot of him in his boxers, you believe he's every year of 81.
That's fair. That's fair.
He was only playing 60, I think 70 though. I think his character, because I think Indiana Jones is either born in 1901 or 1899. I can't remember which.
Gotcha.
So he was playing like 70.
I would have liked just a little bit more puzzles. Like I would have liked a little bit more puzzle. And Confused Kate came out just a little bit. Because as much as I do enjoy wibbly wobbly timey wimey things, I got confused about like why did they go back to this date? Because he kept going, you have the math wrong, you did the math wrong. And I was like, okay, explain why to me. And maybe they did and I missed it, which is very, very
They did
possible.
not on that one. On that one, it was he thought that it was going to go to the wrong place, but it turns out that Archimedes put a fail-safe in that everyone was going to go to that date.
Oh, see,
Right.
I did not.
Well, Harrison Ford was saying because of continental drift, which means the continents are always moving.
Because we are not 2,000 years ago, we are not in exactly the same place on the Earth. That
yeah.
So that I just got a little bit confused with that, and then having Indy be like, "No, I'm gonna stay." I literally looked at Casey and I was like, "This is the most unbelievable," because that's how I thought it was gonna end. I was like, "This is the most unbelievable, unrealistic ending." And then she was like, "No," and she punched him, and I was like, "Okay, more believable." But if they had, and I'm so glad they didn't end it with him staying there, because I was like, no, that's dumb. Don't do that.
Yeah, no,
they could have gone but no.
Thank goodness they didn't do that. Yes.
In 2,000 years, who knows? Even you'll be valuable as part of this place. And then he shows up, and they open up the Ark of the Covenant thing, and he's actually there. And
So
it really could have looped Back to the Future 1, 2, and 3 on that one.
Yeah, I when that was happening, he was like, "I'm gonna stay." That lost me a little bit. I was like, no.
I was okay. Well, this was the second time I watched it. The second time it was easier because knowing what was going to happen, it bothered me less. I agree. The first time I was kind of like, they're not really going to do that, right? That's really stupid. Like it was supposed to. I think it was supposed to give you an emotional response, and instead it gave you a "that's really stupid" response.
That's really dumb. You're dying, and that's really dumb.
Not from him being shot there, and yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. So, but overall, we have watched worse.
Oh yeah.
Like we have what this falls middle of the pack of movies that we've watched. CGI bugged me, but
so can I say what I thought was wrong with it, or where my issues were? So I totally agree with some of that you say. This movie was too long. If you're not going to have, all your action sequences up front and have essentially no real action sequences in the second half of the movie, you got to tighten it up. And to me, the section from I thought the tuk tuk chase was okay in Casablanca, was it, or wherever it was, Tangiers. So from that point, going to Greece and scuba diving, and then going to Syracuse, to Sicily, that whole section was worthless. And I caught this on second, because all they were doing is going to find the plate. They were looking for the plate that told them where the second thing were. They weren't even looking for the second thing. The whole point of all that was they figured out, they got it away from the bad guys. They figured out where they're going, and the bad guys didn't know. But the bad guys immediately figured out where they were going.
They just followed them.
Yeah, just followed them. So there was that whole half hour, and I thought none of that worked. I was distracted by the fact that Antonio Banderas was suddenly in this movie.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was.
But it's like, why is he here for like 5 minutes of screen time to tell them don't tangle the hoses? And then if you took that movie and you extracted that half hour of the movie, I think it would have been a much better movie. I would have liked also another actual action sequence towards the end. I don't think, like, as I said, I was okay.
Was not an action sequence,
right? The final thing over ancient Greece or Rome or whatever it was,
Italy.
Italy. It wasn't. It was action, but it wasn't really an action sequence because there was no like interaction going on.
Yeah,
and there was no. Can we? Don't you know you got to dispatch of your goons in interesting ways? Like to have your big goon just go underwater and get handcuffed to a pipe, and then he's dead, then he disappears. And then the other ones all just fall out, die in a plane crash. It's just not, that's not what you want out of your action movie. You want like, yay, they beat the guy. So I don't know. As I said, I found the story and the movie kept me more interested, and it wasn't nearly as dumb as Crystal Skull was.
I think we can all agree on that one.
Yeah, but it was not a great movie. So,
and did it bother anybody else? Just the sheer number of people they just shot in this movie. I mean, to me, the body count in this one that weren't Nazis or people trying to kill Indiana Jones, the innocent bystanders that got shot, actually bothered me. Just why are we having to kill all these people?
Yeah, I didn't. Yes,
as I was watching, I thought that's one of those where, I mean, why do we need to kill these people? Why can't the old Indiana Jones would have just they club them over the head and they knock them out?
Right.
Now they have to kill them.
Yeah.
I mean, and what's ever going to happen? Okay, Indy has gone back to the present time. He's still wanted for murder.
I wanted to bring that up too. A lot of movies do this. They set up the story at the beginning by having someone be killed and having the lead character be like framed for it or something. And then at the end of the movie, they just completely ignore that. And that's what this movie did. It's like he's back in New York and everything's fine. And I agree with that. I mean, it's something that could be resolved, but it's done in so many movies. And that particular plot point drives me crazy. The convenient wanted for murder.
Yeah.
He didn't even find the one-armed man this time.
Yeah. Hey, we now have 5 Indiana Jones movies with Harrison Ford. Rank, and for those who have not seen all of the movies, rank the films that you have seen in order. Kate, I'm going to let you go first. Now, you have seen Raiders, you have seen Last Crusade, and you have seen Dial of Destiny, correct?
Correct.
Go ahead.
I'm going to say Last Crusade, Raiders, Dial of Destiny, and then Crystal Skull is the worst. We hate Crystal Skull, right?
Well, if you haven't seen it, you can't say so, but yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and throw that in. I meant to say earlier when Pete was like, something about Crystal Skull, and I was like, yeah, we hate that one. But yeah, so that's my 3. Pete, what about you?
You're going Last Crusade, Raiders.
Yeah, because I think that's what you're going to say is the correct order. Go ahead, Pete.
No, Raiders is one of the best movies ever. So anything with Raiders less than first is wrong. But
okay, then switch it. No, switch it.
No, you're allowed. You're allowed. I'm just joking.
Why did we watch Last Crusade if Raiders was the best one?
Because everybody likes Raiders and not everybody likes, and Raiders has been talked about, and not everyone has Last Crusade.
That we wanted to see because everybody, because Raiders has been is up there. It's on the top 100 movies of all time and everything.
Okay, no, Raiders of the Lost Ark is first, then the Last Crusade, then Dial of Destiny, and then
you just don't remember Raiders. That's all.
I get them mixed up. I get the two of them mixed up.
No, so my order is Raiders of the Lost Ark. As I said, in my personal list, it's definitely top 10 all time. I would probably put Last Crusade second, and then Temple of Doom, which I have a really soft spot. I love that movie, but I know it has problems. I'm going to put that third.
Is it right here? Is this your soft spot?
Yeah, it's right in the rib cage. And then I don't think it's that hard. This is fourth, and Crystal Skull is fifth.
Take that, Crystal Skull.
I kind of wish they'd never made Crystal Skull and they made this movie 15 years ago when he was still young enough to be interesting as Indiana Jones. But anyways, that's my ranking. I don't know. What do you think, Steve?
I'm similar to you, but I'm flipping the first two. For me, Last Crusade just by a thin margin, and then Raiders, and then below that, then would be Temple of Doom. Like for you, Pete, it has a soft spot for me. Saw it as like a teenage boy, and it was right up my alley. And then it would be this one, and then Crystal Skull at the bottom, like bottom.
Okay. For me, I got to go Raiders first. I got to go Last Crusade second. And then there is a very wide gap for me just because of how I feel about the movie personally. I'm going to put Dial of Destiny third.
Ooh.
And then I never want to see either Crystal Skull or Raider or Temple of Doom again. I do not like
Crystal Skull.
I do not like Temple of Doom. I would honestly watch Crystal Skull before I would watch Temple of Doom again. Just because, yes, I don't like it. To me, again, the blood, the guts, and all that bothers me. But it's also, I'm sorry, the female protagonist and Short Round are both annoying as heck.
Indy!
And is that the girl or is that Short Round? I mean,
that's both of them pretty much. Yeah.
So, it's just I cannot watch Temple of Doom at all. It's just it bothers me that much. I would rather now. I'm never going to watch Crystal. I would watch. The best part about Crystal Skull is like the first 10 minutes, and even that's horrid. But when when they're at Area 51 and then the atomic blast, that's the only part that's even minorly watchable.
Yes, I would agree. That's a movie that spends its entire runtime going downhill, and it's like it's best at the beginning, and then the whole movie it does this, and then Marion shows up and it pops for a little bit,
and then low, and then completely jumps off the cliff. I'm sorry, aliens, seriously, seriously. And that's another one where there's bad guys of the people who live in the area, the native people there, that all of a sudden disappear and are never a problem again. I mean, that's just one of those where really. So anyway, but that's where I would put the different indie films. So, okay, as we always do when we watch a movie or we watch an incomplete series, we rank this on cups of pixie dust out of 5, and as she always does, Kate is going to lead us off. Kate, cups of pixie dust out of 5 on this one. For the record, you gave Last Crusade a 3.5.
I'll give this I gave it a 3.5. I'll give this a 3.
Really? Okay. Sorry, I can't throw those editorial comments out there too early. But.
No, this is the downfall to going first, because there's a part of me that's like, because I actually want to give it like a 2.5.
Oh, this is better than Sword in the Stone.
What did I give Sword in the Stone?
2.5.
This is
Wait,
Eric, you're being unfair. Let her judge it.
And then we can judge her. Gotcha. Okay. Give it a 3. Okay.
I'll give it a 3 for now.
Pete?
I'm actually gonna give it a 3, and I'm gonna tell you why. This is the second time I viewed it. I did not mind watching it again. And I know my daughter hasn't seen it yet. She actually said to me when she gets home in January, she wants to watch it. And I considered not rewatching it for this, knowing I was going to watch it again in January. And I'm still like, yeah, I'll watch it again. So it has enough rewatchability to me that I'll give it that's like my difference between 2 and 2.5 and 3 is like, I can rewatch it. It's not that I want to rewatch it a third time, but if she wants to watch it, I would sit and watch it. So I'm going to give it a 3. I think I gave Last Crusade a 4, probably
3.5. We all gave Last Crusade a 3.5.
I only gave it a 3.5. I probably should have given it a 4. But this one a 3, and Crystal Skull would probably get about a 1.5. I don't think I will ever go back to that movie.
Mm-mm.
So even being a diehard, I think I'd watch the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles first.
Ooh.
Ha! Kick rocks. Golden Skull. Crystal Skull. Whatever your name is.
Golden Skull.
I'm not even gonna get your name right because you are that sucky of a movie.
Oh,
Indy and the Aliens.
okay, cut off. So, Steve,
I'm going with 2.5. When I originally saw it, I gave it a 2.5, and I thought it was going to go up to a 3, but the more I think about it, 2.5.
okay. I'll admit I'm stuck between a 2 and a 2.5. Based on what I have given stuff lately, again, if I could give it a 2.25, I would. I got to go with a 2 on this one though, just because some of the stuff, like I gave them up at Treasure Island a 2.5, and I would watch that before I would watch this again. So, and that's kind of what I got to go with personally. So, but
We're all in the same ballpark though, really.
yeah, we are 2.5 to 3. Yeah, so
3.
We're all right in that same area. So again, as we said,
Not great.
Not a great movie. Barely, I would almost argue not even really a good movie. It's an okay movie.
It's an okay movie. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
It's an okay movie.
So,
It's an okay movie with some good sequences.
yes, and could have cut at least half an hour.
Yes, 100%.
So, Kate, what have we got for Disney Plus news this week?
Disney Plus news. Sorry, I got caught off guard. Okay, found it. Pixar's Soul Turning Red and Luca will be released in theaters in 2024. These shows originally debuted on Disney Plus during the pandemic. What an interesting.
What else are they
Yeah,
gonna
screw
release?
you, Bob Chapek.
Ha ha! Crystal Skull.
I mean, that's what else are they going to release? So,
Well,
do you
maybe
think
that's
that
it.
these are actually going to do? Do you think people? I don't know if this is going to work
So,
or not.
I was thinking about it, and the only thing I can think of, and I don't know how they did, but this past year, remember they released several Disney movies for like a weekend.
like
Like
2
Toy-
weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, like Toy Story and Pirates of the Caribbean, and I didn't pay much attention to it, but they must have done enough that they think, okay, well, we can release these and
they'll
maybe make
even.
yeah, I mean, it probably doesn't cost much to release them. So, if they do $1-2 million each, then yeah, I would maybe go see Luca. I did like that one a lot. I liked Luca a lot. The other two I wouldn't bother.
Yeah, I don't foresee myself going and seeing these in theaters. Granted, it
Yeah.
takes a lot for me to go see a movie in theaters, but
Yeah, I probably won't, only because I've seen them and none of them were great that make me feel I need to see it on a big screen.
I would more likely go see like Toy Story in theaters or even The
Right.
Incredibles
Okay.
again.
Did you when it was out this last summer?
I didn't know it was out this last summer.
Yeah, they didn't advertise it particularly well. They like announced it in like June, and we have even announced it, I think, on the news.
Yeah.
But then I didn't hear it at all when they were actually in theaters. So
I'm going to change the subject for a second because I have a question.
Mhm.
And I'm going to pose this to the other tuners in the group. So we've now watched Marvel. We've watched Star Wars. We've watched Indiana Jones. What would be your fandom of choice? Your lore of choice?
Are those my only 3 options?
Well, no. Well, what other big? I mean, you've got the Harry Potter series, but that's not Disney. Like you have these fantasy, huge, almost cult-like followings of these giants. I can't think of what the word. It's not lore. What's the word I want? Fandoms?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I mean, to me, cult-like means smaller. So I don't, to me, like Marvel is not
Classic is
cult-like.
Rocky Horror. Rocky
Yeah,
Horror is
so
cult classic.
so what's the so
Well, to me,
you
cult-like is Doctor Who.
No,
okay,
not
so
as
maybe that's not the right
many
word.
fans as Doctor Who has. You're calling that cult-like?
But
I
okay,
don't
okay.
think it's nearly the level of Marvel.
Okay, that's fine.
Year 3000 is cult-like.
Okay, so
Yes,
you have these
100%.
fandoms that are quite large that have become multiple movies, multiple franchises. That's the word I wanted.
Franchises, yeah.
Franchises. So the big ones that come to mind that we have all watched together, Star Wars, Marvel, Indy. You could, I mean, non-Disney, you could look at Star Trek, you could look at Harry Potter.
Okay, what is the minimum criteria for a franchise for you? How many movies in your mind, just your mind, how many movies does it have to be? Because that will directly affect my answer.
At least 3.
Then I've got my answer totally. Okay. So, Kate, how about you? What would yours be?
Well, if we're only going into Disneyverse,
No, any fandom.
Probably that's tough because I love Harry Potter.
Okay.
So, but Marvel would probably win out because I've just spent more time in Marvel. But I love the lore of Harry Potter. So, what about you, Pete?
Yeah, the issue I have with Harry Potter is those 7 books are fantastic, and subsequently the movies are pretty great too.
Are not as good.
I think they're pretty good. They're not as good as the books. No, I'll give you that for sure. The books are amazing. However, I don't. It's not of my age. I think, which is, it's my daughter's age, but it's not of my age. And then everything that's the stuff that came out after the primary books is such garbage that I guess I have to say Star Wars. Growing up, I was actually a bigger Trekkie than I was Star Wars, but Trek kind of lost me over the years. And there's enough. See, I'm not the type of person that's like, oh, they're making too much of this or whatever. Well, I mean, you can have that, but like, to me, it's like, make stuff, and not all of it's going to be great, but if some of it's great, that's fine. And I think, to me, that's what we have with Star Wars, is some of it's great, some of it's just okay, some of it's bad, and that's fine. And so I like generally what they're doing with Star Wars overall. So that would probably be my pick. That would be my favorite of the franchises right now. What about you, Steve?
It'd be Star Wars or the Back to the Future. Those
were
two.
Oh, that's another good one.
Those are the ones I really enjoyed growing up. But I mean, we're talking Disney, it's definitely Star Wars. I'm not into all the things, but I remember like the core movies and just those being such an impact. And then non-Disney, Back to the Future.
Oh,
I know what Derek's gonna say.
I do love Back to the Future, but I am so glad that it's 3 movies. And I mean, I know there was an animated series, but 3 movies.
I'm happy with the 3 nice wrapped up story. But
let's just stop there.
Yep.
Okay, Kate knows exactly what
I know what Derek's gonna say.
Why I asked how many movies you had to have. I gotta go Ghostbusters.
Yep.
I gotta go.
I knew he was going to say that.
I knew it too.
I do not count the 2016, 2017, whichever one it was, the reboot. I don't count that one, but Ghostbusters 1, Ghostbusters 2, and Ghostbusters Afterlife are a great franchise. It's one where the second movie is the weakest movie.
Well, by far.
Yeah.
I would also say it's also one of the rare ones that where 30, 40 years on, the next iterate, having waited from the mid 80s until the until 2000s to reboot or revisit the series. The revisit worked.
Yeah.
Afterlife works.
Mhm.
So, and I would say that's one of the rare ones where you can go back and completely revisit. Honestly, tonight's movie shows me it's really hard. Because that's what tonight felt like.
Mm.
Well, I think one of the problems that Indiana Jones has is that it's so tied to
One person,
two people.
Yes.
And one of those people wasn't that involved with this movie, and that's Steven Spielberg and Harrison Ford. And so Derek brought it up, and I definitely noticed it too. The director of this movie was James Mangold, and he's actually made some very good movies. I did not feel there was very much director personality in this movie at all, and even Crystal Skull, with how bad it was, still had some of Spielberg.
Movie.
Yeah, it was still a Spielberg movie.
So
It's that indie feel that I think I was talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
I think you all are kind of proving my point of like, it's not cult classic isn't the word I wanted, but these are movies that have stood the test of time, that people still love so much. Ghostbusters, perfect example. Back to the Future, perfect example. There were 3 movies of this franchise made, but it's not the same. I don't know if any of you ever watched the Oceans movies,
Yeah.
Oceans 11, 12.
12 was terrible. 12 was terrible.
It's not. I'm going to argue that it's not. But
nearly as good as 11 and 13.
So Ocean's 11 is one of my favorite, because I love heist movies.
Do you know why it's so good? It's a remake.
Yeah, I did know that.
But the original is not good.
But to say that the Ocean's movies, like, you can't take the Ocean's movies and put them on the same level as Ghostbusters, as Back to the Future, as Harry Potter, as Star Trek, as Star Wars. It's so different. And I feel like these have more of a cult classic following, which is why I use those words, even though I don't think those words fit. It's the franchise has just boomed more. But I would watch Ocean's 11 on repeat. That movie is brilliant. So, and Ocean's 8 was terrible.
Or you're up on the Paramount Network. It's on every day. So,
Yeah.
So anyway, I know that was a random question, but I was just curious because I know people.
That's a good example, because those are 3 really well made, entertaining movies. Again, central director and star group.
Right.
I'm not going to solely give it to George Clooney, but several Brad Pitt and Matt Damon and Julia Roberts, and just really, really well done bunch of movies. And what I'll defend on Ocean's 12 is I think it doesn't work as well because I don't know if I want it, because
the one where Julia Roberts plays herself.
Yes,
kind of, yes, and Bruce Willis shows up, and anyways, rewatching it, knowing more what's going to happen in the plot, like the entire movie, they're screwing up.
Yes.
And so you're watching the movie and you're watching them like lose and then lose again and then lose again.
And then come to find out they're doing it on purpose.
And then you find out it is all it's all an entire fake out. Works so well, except that for the entire movie, you're like, I don't like this movie. And then you get to the end, you're like, oh, that's pretty smart. But the problem is you spend an hour and a half saying, I don't like this movie.
Yeah.
So, but if you, again, it's one of those movies that I think if you know the ending, it's actually better, because then you can see, oh, even though they're doing all these things and making mistakes, and the guy thinks they're making the guy they're trying to, thinks they're making all these mistakes, they actually aren't. So, I think that movie works better on rewatch. So,
okay.
All right.
So, next week, as we've been saying all along, next week is the 2023 Toonie Awards. We like to have awards on what's the best thing we've watched this year. what's the worst thing we've watched this year. And there's, what's the best Marvel series? What's the best non-Marvel series? What's the best Vault show that we've done? What's the best thing we've watched at all? So the link is up on our Facebook page. Please go on, vote. It needs to be more than just the four of us deciding these results. And tune in next week and figure out what wins the awards and what wins the awards for not being good. So, guys, if you have suggestions on what we should watch, as Pixar is showing, there's going to be a stretch there in February and March where not much is coming out. So please email us at plusplatoon@gmail.com. We have new shows coming out every Thursday on YouTube and all the major podcasting services. For Kate, Pete, Steve, Gina, our producer in the background, we say thank you for watching us, and we will see everyone next week. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for watching this week's episode of the Plus Platoon. Be sure to subscribe to the Plus Platoon podcast to keep getting great content each week. Then head over to Apple Podcast and leave those 5-star reviews, as they help make the Plus Platoon visible to even more Disney Plus fans. Also, go to YouTube and like and subscribe to the Plus Platoon channel, where you can watch all future episodes live. If you have a question for the Plus Platoon, please send us an email to plusplatoon@gmail.com or connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram @plusplatoon.
The Plus Platoon is a Disney Plus fan podcast and is not affiliated with the Walt Disney Company or the Disney Plus streaming service. All opinions expressed on the show are solely those of the individual hosts and in no way reflect the views of the Walt Disney Company.
Thanks for watching, and be sure to stay tuned for next week's episode, because the Plus Platoon is to be continued.